Assalamualaikum everybody, welcome back to the channel. We're going to go over all of the dramas I've been watching where two have actually finished and I've started a new one, and this is going to be going over at least 2 weeks of dramas airing because I missed last week's upload. So let's get right into it. Let's start off with Qarz which is consistently the best drama that I've been watching these last few weeks, and every single episode is so good. So first of all, I feel like the thing that makes this drama stand out more compared to a lot of the other dramas is the fact that it is touching on really serious topics, and while it is not explicitly talking about certain things, these are issues that I think are very common in Pakistan and around the world, and it's just refreshing to see that it's being discussed in Pakistani media in some capacity. And the characters do a really good job, especially the scary Daya, I believe. He is so scary, and his role I think is really important because he is representative of, honestly, the Pakistani society and how people in power play with like other people's lives because they have the power and the resources to do so. But first I want to talk about Maheen, who is the person that has been assaulted and is staying in the hospital, Ammar's ex-girlfriend, you could say. And I just feel really bad for her character, and I know that typically if someone was in her situation, I feel like there's always so many accusations towards the girl, like why was she like engaging with this person at all, why was she at this party, and all of those like typical things. But I just feel so bad for her because she's also like from a gaon, like probably like choti soch wale log, and like izzat pe zyada, like they're more probably interested in how they look towards other people rather than the safety and justice for their kids. And while you want to say and while I'm saying that, the thing is, the reality is ye choti soch even ye bade logon ke saath hoti hai. Like the uncle, Ammar's father, even though he's this person with so much power and money, he ascribes to this choti soch because that's what makes it work, or life work, in his favor. And he also has a son, so it works in his favor as well. But again, going back to Maheen, the thing that's so frustrating and hard to watch is how vulnerable she is, how alone she is, because we already see in the previous episodes that her sister does not support her speaking out or seeking justice for herself because log kya kehenge, basically, right? And what was so sad is they show that she's talking to her dad. This was in the previous episode, not the most recent one, I believe. They show that she's talking to her dad, and he's like concerned for his daughter, like because he doesn't really know what happened, but he's concerned and doesn't have the money to come to even visit her, so he just wanted to call and check up on her. And I just think that this actress did a really good job of portraying like the fear and everything that you would go through in a situation like that, because it was so tough to watch because she can't say anything just so that like in fear of her dad disowning her potentially, because even if he's a loving father or whatever, at the end of the day he grew up in that society, so like it's understandable that he would have like a similar reaction as his daughter, the other daughter, right? So it's just so difficult. But you can tell that he's like, I don't know, I felt watching it like he's like a gentle papa type of person. So like it's really tough when you wouldn't even potentially have their support if they knew the truth. And you also don't want to break their heart, right? Because then a lot of people that actually do care about their kids, they feel like, oh, what could I have done differently so that she wouldn't have ended up in this situation. So when I previously made my notes for that 6th episode, I was going to talk about how I felt so happy that she wanted to seek justice despite her situation, despite her upbringing. I was also thinking how, like, unfortunately, like, this is probably not what actually happens most of the time. People probably don't say anything, report anything. Even in like the Western world, a lot of these types of cases don't get reported because of the societal pressures, and it's just not very common. So I imagine back home in Pakistan, it's probably even less reported. So it's just so sad, but I was really glad to see that she wanted to, take a stand for herself and fight for herself. But unfortunately, what happens in the most recent episode is that Ammar essentially threatens her by sending her videos or pictures of most likely the assault that he took part in or did, and it was just so, ugh, I hated it. But her reaction, the way she reacted to it, like, so understandable, because at the end of the day, you are human. Even if this person should be brought to justice, like, being scared into like silence is pretty common as well. And it was just frustrating, and it just made me want her to get justice even more. On the other hand, we have Nashwa, who keeps fighting back with her mom, like, why are you still in this situation? Why were you suppressed for so long? Why weren't you allowed to remarry? You were so young at the time, and all of that stuff. She's going through her own personal dilemmas, but at the same time, she also has to navigate the fact that she knows that Ammar is capable of doing something like this to Maheen, and she's trying to figure out how to tackle it, because she wants justice for her, but obviously she understands that this is going to reflect poorly on her family and cause more problems for herself, which she already has so many, thanks to the weirdness of her uncle and her dado. And another thing, again, it doesn't feel as pressing as Maheen's current situation, but we find out that Nashwa's mom, like, the more we learn about her mom and how unfairly she has been treated her entire life, and she's just been living this life of loneliness and servitude, it's just so difficult to watch, because I just feel like she lost so much of her life, and for what? She's gotten nothing out of it. Yeah, like, she's gotten nothing out of it. There's no benefit that she has. So I don't understand why she didn't have the himmat to do something about it herself. But we also don't know her backstory or her family history, if she comes from money or has support from her family or not. So I can understand that there's a lot of question marks. And I wonder if that is the reason why now Nashwa wants justice for Maheen, because she can't get justice for her mom, and she knows Ammar is a bad person. So it's like two birds with one stone. You're getting justice for someone, and also you're showing the realities of Ammar, because he receives so many benefits because of the fact that like, whose son he is, and the fact that he's a guy, and the fact that they're just so lenient with him, and he has more power and resources to get away with a lot of illegal activity. And another frustrating thing that happened in the most recent episode is the fact that the Dado is losing her mind on Nashwa for basically choosing to stand against Ammar. And what I find really difficult is, I feel like this Dado is so, like, she's so bad. She's so bad. She only cares about herself and only cares about her kids. She does not see her daughter-in-laws as real people. And I think, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if she believes her son Bizad passed away because of his wife, just because, I don't know, like, she seems like that type of person to me. But the real reason why she has such an issue with Nashwa having this, choosing to stand against Ammar, is the fact that it's just adding to poor reflection on Ammar and the rest of the family. And Ammar is kind of like the golden boy. Why? Because he's a boy. That's it. That's it. There's not even that many, like, cousins or whatever. Like, that's just what it is. And what other issue is coming up is the fact that Ammar's sister is getting married into their cousin's family, and that cousin and his family think it's odd that they're just okay with Ammar's accusations, and they're just like, yeah, like, let's just get you guys married now. And it's affecting Ammar's sister's relationship with her fiance, but I don't think the grandmother really cares that much about that, really, because she seems to just care about their personal reputation and Ammar's reputation. Why? Because at the end of the day, Ammar's sister is just getting sent off somewhere else. Like, I don't think they value, like, women in that family in general. And I'm pretty sure she only has sons too, so I feel like that plays a role. I feel like that makes you a little bit egotistical if you're like that grandmother, because then you think like, oh, I did such a good job because I only gave birth to sons. Because I think there is that mentality very present and prevalent in Pakistan. I'm not saying all of them are like that, but a lot of them are. Another thing that happened was the fact that I keep thinking his name is Salis, but it's not Salis in the show, it's in Ghair. But the guy that is the lawyer in the show, he catches or hears and listens in on Nashwa and Amar arguing, and I think he's understanding that there is some deeper layers to all of this, and the only reason he continued to pay attention is because it's relevant to the case that they're discussing, because they're going to fight against Amar. So that's what's going on. I honestly am not sure what direction the show is going to go at this point, except that Nashwa will try to take a stand against Amar. I think I literally can't predict anything. I don't know what is going to happen. I just find it really interesting. I just only have very strong feelings against her uncle. I think it's her Taya. That man is so freaking scary, and I think he's willing to go to cross lines that normally people wouldn't cross. Like, I feel like Nashwa's mom is going to be threatened literally by her brother-in-law. Like, that's crazy, but that's what's probably going to happen. But other than that, I have no idea what direction they're trying to take this show, and I think it's way too soon to really see what's gonna happen. And yeah, that's how I feel so far about Qarz, the best show I'm watching so far. Next we have Duniyapur, which is such a interesting contrast to Qarz, because both of them are serious shows, but I think it's hilarious that we have Anna and Shamir having their own little love story while people are trying to hunt them down alive. It's hilarious to me, and I don't understand how no one else is finding this a little bit odd, because you're literally wanted dead and you guys are falling in love. Like, it's a Romeo and Juliet story, but like, I don't like it. And then on top of that, of course, we find out that Anna is betraying Shamir, and this was all a ploy to just play along with the fact that he fell in love with her randomly. And now the Nawab has basically arrested Shamir and has him under his control. And the funny thing about this was the fact that the girl, his cousin, Shamir's cousin, that likes him, and I think they're supposed to be engaged or whatever, she also came running after him and she got caught too. So now they're both in jail together. So that's going to be an interesting and awkward conversation for sure. And finally, when it comes to actually like the whole show, it's kind of funny because I was like, oh, this is not your typical drama. But then I was like, no, actually it is. You can't trust anyone in your own family. That's what this show is showing you. Because there is so much betrayal in the show, from the brother, the mother, the dad, the daughter, the son. Everyone is betraying each other. And I think it's just more interesting because it's in a different format versus like just your typical Sas Bahu drama within a single household. Recent episode has already aired, but I haven't had a chance to watch it, so definitely stick around for the review for that next week. So subscribe if you haven't already, because I do release drama reviews basically every single week. I missed last week because there were some issues with the recording, but that's okay. Next we have Ghair, which I have been really liking the show now because it's finally, like, we finally get the justice that Wafa deserved and the truth has been exposed. But now we're getting to also see that she is getting along with her dad and he's accepted her wholeheartedly again. Please see all my previous drama reviews with Ghair. The problem with this show is the fact they flip-flop so much. They hate her, then they love her, then they hate her, then they love her, and it keeps happening. Like, literally, the one person that I did not expect her to ever be accepted by was her stepmom, her dad's like second wife, and they show her like, you know, wanting to spend time with her. It was so weird. I was like, this looks really fake. Like, Wafa, the fact that Wafa got happy too, I'm like, how do you trust her already? I don't understand. Like, these people wanted you dead like 2 episodes ago. What are you doing? But that's okay. I guess that's just the reality of Ghair. It's fine. But what was more satisfying in the show for sure was the fact that she confronts Farjad, or rather Farjad tries to apologize to her and she's just like, yeah, can you just not, because this is embarrassing for you. And she is right for it, because it is so embarrassing for him to have to like the fact that he thought usko himmat kidhar se aa gayi thi, I don't know, because he was so rude and disrespectful, and he basically helped push and was the catalyst for like the downfall of her life over the last couple of months, and now he wants to just apologize and make everything better. Like, I just don't get it. So I am actually thinking they're not going to be together. It's like becoming more and more apparent over the last like 4 or 5 episodes, which makes me really, really happy because I do not want them together. It doesn't make any sense for this to happen, and it looks like it's not going to happen. In fact, Farjad is probably going to get with the girl that works at his office, which also doesn't look like it would ever happen, but I think that's where they're trying to take it, and I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. And then the last 2 people that I want to talk about is first Shifa. Ugh, she's so embarrassing. She confronts her want to be mother-in-law, Salas's mom, and then his dad also comes into the picture, and they're just like, get out of here, and she starts being really rude and disrespectful to them. And then Salas comes in the picture and he's like, don't do that, don't talk to my parents like that or whatever, understandably, and he basically is like, I want nothing to do with you, and that whole situation ends. And of course Shifa goes to Wafa like, oh, you can have my like trash or like my leftovers, and I'm like, bruh, you're so embarrassing. This is like typical like Pakistani behavior, I don't know, like Desi person behavior, I don't know, where you like just twist the baat to suit your story so you look less embarrassing. Like, just accept it, just accept it, just accept that this person does not want you anymore, because not because of anything that's necessarily wrong with you, but the fact that you're disrespectful, and you've been disrespectful to his parents specifically. He didn't seem to have an issue for so long, but at this point it's like at a boiling point for him, and he's made this decision. Let's go to Salas in that case. Salas has continued to consistently, from the first episode, be such a coward. I think the term would be buzdil. I don't know. But he's been a coward from the first episode. He cannot commit, he cannot make decisions for himself, he makes promises he can't keep, and then puts so much pressure on the people around him. And I feel like his character has not improved at all from the beginning. The only reason he's missing Wafa is because of this attachment by association, and the fact that Wafa, for whatever reason, her character continued to try to be the best person she could be, or like a decent human being, even though she was constantly suffering so much. And so again, I would rather Wafa not end up with either of them, even though I was starting to like them together, like Salas and Wafa. The problem is this guy is not a real, like, he's not a real man. And so I just think, like, it doesn't matter. I just think he's such a weak personality. I don't understand how he has the traits to be a husband, because he cannot stand up for anyone. And the reason he stood up for his parents is because it hurt his personal ego, and, you know, like, he cares about his parents. But he was not able to like stop this relationship and put a limit on it for so long until it got to this point. And for that reason, I just don't think he's a good guy. Like, he's just not a good guy. I feel like he's low-key like a villain. Like, he is not a good person. He messed with 2 people's lives. And yes, like, I always hear arguments now that, you know, it's tough for men out there too now. Like, they also, unko bhi baatein sunne padte or whatever. And I'm like, this whole show, unko kuch nahi sunna pada for so long. And I'm like, he was doing nothing. He never had to face the consequences of his actions until now-ish. And even then, I'm like, he's not going through anything, and he's done nothing to improve himself as a person, even for himself. I just don't get it. And so they should not be together. Now let's go over to another drama that I really, really am enjoying, Ishq E Junoon. And this drama, I feel like the characters are way more elevated compared to Ghair. And that is because I feel like there's a little bit more complexity. There's actual like serious tones and like consequences to everyone's actions. And it's just way more enjoyable to watch for sure. I definitely like Ushna Shah, I think that's her name, in this show better, even though I'm noticing a trend that she's always playing these kind of helpless damsels in distress, but she has somewhat of like, you know, like self-respect, but like barely there. I don't know, whatever. But the thing so far in AIk Junoon is like we're now getting to the very interesting part is what I'm gonna say. It's been interesting so far, but it's now I think we're gonna see really interesting things. And if we compare this to another show I'm gonna review later, Iqtidar, this is so much more elevated, I would say. First of all, betrayal is everywhere again with the show as well, because constantly the stepmom to Rahim is constantly like turning, like manipulating the situation so that Shiroz can be saved. And I'm like, it's just not that deep. It's just not that deep. Like, I think you really need to just accept that your kid is not a good guy. Like, he's just not. Like, it's so stressful because you're putting so much pressure on the entire family and you're ruining someone else's life for not even a child that is worth it. But I understand as a parent you think, you know, like you just love them so much, but it just seems so extreme. Like, she is truly the evil person in this situation. She is the bad person in this situation. She is the bad guy. Shiroz is also the bad guy, and he deserves to face the consequences of his actions. I don't think he's going to, but he should. And then we have Jamal, who also is evil. So we do have a couple evil people here. He is okay with throwing, you know, Eamon under the bus for some money, and I get it. It's, you know, like, I can understand his perspective, but like, you just shouldn't constantly be expressing how much you care about her. Then like just accept that you're kind of a lowlife. Just accept it. It's okay. Like, I feel like that would be more honorable than whatever he's doing. And it's just so disappointing. And Eamon is now getting even more confused, but she's also defending him because she's like, there's has to be, like, he had to have been forced into this situation because she knows that it wasn't him. And I think she's starting to get more like flashbacks, and I think it's going to gradually become clear to her once she starts to see these so many discrepancies that it wasn't actually Rahim, it was Shiroz, and that's gonna be really interesting. But I think what's more interesting right now is the fact that Maheen, Rahim's ex-girlfriend or ex-fiance, her dad is now fully in the picture, which is one thing I was waiting for. I was like, why is this guy so silent despite everything that happened to him, despite the fact that he's like a desi dad with a huge ego, a political figure and all of that stuff. I just didn't understand, like, it didn't make sense to me. But now he's in the picture and now he wants to bring justice, or at least I don't think he wants to bring justice. I think he just wants to make them suffer for the fact that his daughter is suffering because of Rahim and his family. And I think, and Rahim is, I think, aware, or Rahim is also now aware of this situation with the with his ex-father-in-law or father-in-law to be. And now we're going to see clashes between Rahim, the Maheen's dad, and then also Rahim's dad. And it's just going to be interesting how they navigate all of this. We have the lawyer in the mix as well, and then obviously the stepmom that is trying to frame Rahim, or just someone else. She's happy that Jamal is taking the downfall for all of this, but it's just a lot is happening, but it's so much like better. It's been portrayed in such a better way compared to Iqtidar, and we'll talk about Iqtidar in a moment, but it's so much more elevated, so much more interesting. And even like the color scale of the show, it's darker and it adds to the mood of the show and the intensity. But I have to say, I'm just enjoying it so much. There are two last things that I want to talk about more so with the side characters. First of all, we have Eamon's not the mod, Eamon, I forgot what it's called in Urdu, but Eamon's brother-in-law, so Eamon's sister's husband, is so annoying. And what was really frustrating was, like, in the more recent episodes, even her sister was like, you know, she's just a liar, why are you guys like putting us through all of this? And I'm like, oh my god, you're getting, like, your husband is rubbing off on you. This is terrible, because he is such an arshlock. He's like saying, so like, he's just like saying that, you know, Eamon is a gold digger and all this, and he's making all these accusations as well. And I'm like, bro, like time and place. Like, I don't know, I just don't like this guy at all. He's just adding masala to their wounds for no reason, and it's really frustrating to watch. And also, going to Maheen, that's the other person I want to talk about. Maheen, you're a politician's daughter. Why is she asking her dad? Oh my god, how could they be doing this? And you know, do you really think that Jamal isn't the actual perpetrator and it is Rahim and it's just a facade or whatever? And I'm like, you're a politician's daughter in Pakistan. I don't understand. It's ridiculous. And I know that she apparently lived with her mom for quite some time. No, she didn't. Yeah, so you grew up around your dad. Like I feel like you made her way too clueless, way too innocent for what? This is not realistic. So on the flip side to AIk Junoon, we have Iqtidar, which I have to say is not nearly as interesting, or the story is not as intense or as well portrayed, because I really feel like Iqtidar is just like, it's like I don't want to sound mean but it's like trashy TV. That's what it feels like to me, because it's so like, you have these, like, similar to Ishq E Junoon, we have these really powerful people and like the interactions just don't hit the same. The way it's being shown is more of a love story, whereas I feel like Ishq E Junoon is not a love story. At least I'm not seeing that yet. I'm seeing like much more darker themes. But with Iqtidar, I feel like it's just following this love story and adding a little bit of spice with politics in it, and that's about it, really. The last couple of episodes, what we've seen is Aruj has gotten married, who is Meru's cousin, and she's married the guy that she wanted to, her cousin, and unfortunately her facade and perfect image is starting to crack, because as soon as she gets married, she's just constantly disappointed and annoyed and comparing what she is receiving and experiencing to what Meru probably experienced or has experienced, because Meru's husband is way more wealthy, because he's like a dirty politician essentially. And it's just, I think we're going to see the downfall of Aruj's situation, and it's going to be very unfortunate, but it's going to be kind of like you reap what you sow. You stole essentially someone else's person in order to be happy, and for the wrong reasons. So I'm not surprised by any of this, but I'm like, bro, you could like control yourself at least a little bit. Like, it's really bad. And then we have Meru and Shahnawaz, and their love story is continuing, and they're like really into each other, but they're like kind of not, because of the situation that they find themselves in, and the fact that Shahnawaz on their first like wedding day was like, yeah, this was all a facade essentially. Like, poor planning on his part, honestly. But also what we find is the fact that Shahnawaz has been able to get his brother released, or actually his mom has been able to, because they coerced Meru's mom to sign papers saying that he's been forgiven and that we don't want him in jail or whatever. And it's interesting because now the brother is back and Meru's like, what the hell? And I do love the fact that Meru keeps putting him in his place and just being like, get out of my sight. I do like that. I think it's hilarious. However, of course, Shahnawaz's brother now has his eyes on Meru's sister, because why? Because he can, and that's how he's going to basically make Meru suffer. So this is just like, it just doesn't feel very serious, you know? And I think it's not necessarily touching on, it doesn't feel like a very serious show meant to like teach you anything or teach lessons or have a good message. It's just random stuff. That's how I feel, honestly. Then we have Faraar. Another show that we have that is also kind of disappointing me a little bit is Faraar, because this show also I feel like has more serious or like less slice of life vibes to it, but it's not delivering the way I want it to deliver. First, we have that rich political family that their world hasn't collided just yet with Batish's world, but they're crazy. The mom, or the wife, sorry, that finds out that her husband is cheating, she's crazy. And she basically gets her husband killed. We're just gonna skip all that other stuff that happened. Yeah, it was wild. And the mistress, I think, has run away. And she also was like, what are you doing to the guy that she's interested in, that she did not want him to treat his actual wife the way the wife was treating her in the first episode. he just asked for his own death. I don't know. It was really disturbing and dark, I have to say. And I have not been prepared for a Pakistani show to be this way. So it's just like really surprising to me. But conclusion is he's gone. To see just a few glimpses of Daniel Zafar, and it was a little entertaining and a little bit of comic relief. But I'm not really entirely sure still how he's going to show up and how all the worlds are going to connect. I mean, I do have an idea. Okay, I mentioned this before. I do think that he's going to be kind of like hired into the hitman community and maybe have to get rid of Batish or help get rid of Batish or track him down or something. And I think that the powerful political family is probably the family that helps order or had Batish hired for them as a hitman. Like, I see the loose connections, but I'm not really sure how or why. It would be interesting to see that. The camera just disconnected and also it's dying, so we have to be a lot more quicker, which is unfortunate because I really want to get into Bismil because it finally ended, and I think it ended really well actually. And I think the ending was satisfying, but it was satisfying for the viewers. And I think if TT had handled his situation the way he should have, given that he's remorseful and all of that, it could have ended better for him and for Masuma. But I think as viewers we would not have been satisfied, and so that's why we got the ending that we did. We find that TT is continuing to mishandle the situation even though all of this stuff has happened. It's unfortunate, but he chooses to just continue to add to the fire and burn everything down. He takes away everything from Masuma, including her son, which is crazy. And I understand his frustration. I understand that he just found out that like gradually of all of the lies and the deceit, and that everything was intentional on Masuma's part because she was greedy and just wanted him for his money. But I really think that he was aware of this from the get-go. There is just no way that he could not have foreseen that she was after money. That was a huge motivator for her, right? Now, yes, so many unfortunate things have happened, and yes, you have found out that she was not truthful to you, right? But you also did that to your own wife. So are you really that surprised? And now let's say all this has happened. Do you really think that it is worth it now to take away this new kid that you have, take him away from his mom, like his actual mom? And yes, he made a good point, like, you know, you weren't raised well, how are you going to raise him well, kind of a thing. And or that you, I don't know if he explicitly said that she wasn't raised well, but that she's not a good person, and how would she raise a good person if she is the way she is, right? And the craziest thing was the fact that he was just like, oh, here's compensation to Reham. It was just crazy. Like the fact that everything that's happened and you're just like, okay, like I'm just putting a bandage on this is compensation, you lost one son, so let's just start over. Like maybe you can get away with that or move past that, but Reham was the actual mom to Musa, and so like it's just frustrating. It was crazy for him to have the audacity, and Reham is also like, how can you say that to me? And she also hands him a khulal letter, and she decides to leave. And I think given the situation, everything that she went through, like this was an appropriate response, and she did deliver on her promise, which was to make him suffer for the rest of his life. And that is what's going to happen, because he thought everything could be better because he still has money and he has now a replacement child, and he's just going to get back his first wife because the second one was a bad person. But she leaves him once he makes all of those decisions and burns all those bridges and knows the truth and everything. She's like, okay, now I'm gone, because this was supposed to happen a while ago, but you know, it just got delayed for whatever reason. I think that was the nail on the coffin for TT, and now I think he will just suffer for the rest of his life. That's just the reality. And I think both Masuma and TT were finally able to face the consequences of their actions. But Masuma, I think she suffered at the hands of TT because of TT's ego. TT suffered at the hands of Reham as this final blow, not because of Reham's ego, but of like the consequences of his actions, because he just assumed, because of his position, because of whatever facilities he has, whatever privileges he has, that he can just move on from this unscathed. But he didn't, I don't think he really learned his lesson until Riham left him. I think he felt like he was wronged, and yes, he may have made mistakes, but he didn't wrong the way Masuma wronged him. And so it was honestly a really good show. The conclusion was satisfying, I have to say. It was a really good show because it was interesting, but I had a lot of grievances throughout, and I think that it was unfortunate for Masuma to have to see all of that betrayal, to find out about all of that betrayal. But she, like, you reap what you sow. She was constantly using others to her advantage, and finally when she was done dirty, it was in such an intense way. She's lost everything, and I'm pretty sure that she is now destitute. Her reputation is ruined in her society that she is supposed to return to. The home that she's supposed to return to is a rental anyway, so they have nothing really. Her reputation among like the professional world is also ruined because now everyone knows that she's a gold digger, that she's just in it for money. Like, she's just presented herself in this way that I think it'll be really hard for her to find a job, but she will, but it'll be difficult for her to get back on her feet, and for her to have fallen from her graces, it's going to be a really intense situation. And the way that Zubair trapped her was also unfortunate, but also like I expected that. But what I didn't expect, I think Zubair was only able to do what he did because of the fact that he was approached by TT, and TT knew that they had a history or whatever, that they grew up together, and that is the only reason that we were able to see that justice. Otherwise Zubair would have kept his head down and lived his life. Like, he's not this powerful character that can like get revenge or whatever, and the only reason he did that was because of the insult that Masuma had done towards his mom towards the absolute end that he had found out about. And yeah, that was wild. That was wild. It was a good show. I would rate it pretty high. I don't know what I would rate it right now off the top of my head. I would have to think about it, but it was a really good show. On a similar note, we have AIk Chubhan, which is also about a man that remarries or gets a second wife. There's a lot of betrayal and all of that stuff. I mentioned it or talked about the show in a previous episode, but I want to talk about specifically the ending and the last episode, and how, again, I'm very satisfied with the conclusion, even though I'm not sure if it's entirely realistic. I'm really glad that Naila, the first wife, chose not to remarry and just focus on herself, her business, and being self-sufficient. The thing about the show that I really liked was the fact that they showed that you can't be dependent on another person. At times when life kicks you in the butt is when you realize that you need to have your own like resume built up, because she tried to get a job, she couldn't get a job. Why? Because she had a huge gap in her experience, which was basically all of it was a gap, because I don't think she ever started working, right? So she suffered, and it was only because she had the skill of sewing that she was able to get into the kapron ki industry. And when we go back to Mahi, the only reason she got justice, or we got justice, was because her first crush, or the guy, or Moise's first crush, the betrayal of all of that is what fueled him, and also the way that she was treating his family and the way Naila was treated. That is what fueled him to betray her in the way that he did. And I think it was really painful to watch, because at the end of the day, she is a person, and at the end of the day, it was like, that is still your family. And the fact that you left her destitute, had no issue with it, was like, whoa, that's dark. That's really, really dark. Did she deserve it? Yes. But I have to point out that that was so dark and intense to watch. Very satisfying, but very intense, because he made it so that she would have no contact with any of them, because they've all moved away. She doesn't know where Naila lives. It was really intense, and I think at the end of the day, Mahi is the one who suffered the most. Yes, the guy that she married fell from his graces, but he still has just like a regular schmegular job, but he still, like, it's not as bad. He didn't have to suffer as much, honestly. That's how I feel. Because Mahi, she was younger. I don't think she even like went to university, or she had started to, but that's about it. She was left with absolutely nothing, and she totally deserved it. Yeah, I keep playing it back in my head and I'm like, wild, wild. One thing that I noticed was the guy that had cheated on Naila with Mahi. There's like a scene where he's going for a job interview and the guy that he's going to be interviewed by recognizes him, and they like mention something like they basically implied that this guy was like a big shot and now he's coming for an interview, so he must have lost everything. I couldn't make the connection from earlier in the show when that time was, but yeah, like they just show how he has fallen from his graces and how Mahi has fallen from her graces, and now everyone else thankfully is moving on with their life and free of this nazar and this intense like boj that they had to deal with for so long. The thing that hurt the most though was like, from what we see, Mahi's dad was actually like a decent guy. He tried his best, but us pe asar nahi hua. And it's just so sad because she realizes finally, and I think if all this stuff didn't happen, she never would have realized how much she was actually surrounded by love, and she took advantage of it and refused to learn from the love around her and be a better person. That is a very depressing end to the Pakistani drama review this week. But those are the shows that I've been watching. I actually was watching another show, I forgot what it's called, Meri Tanhai. But to be honest, like I'm interested in that show. It's just the first episode and nothing crazy is going on. It's kind of your typical stuff. But we'll talk about that again probably in the next review. If you guys have any comments on any of the shows that we are watching, let me know in the comments down below. If you have any really good recommendations for any new shows that have been started in the last few weeks, I'd be interested. Nothing that's complete or has many episodes, because I will feel compelled to binge everything in like a day, and that's just not healthy. So anything in the last few weeks that started, let me know. I'll check it out. Subscribe and comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Assalamu alaikum.